It was a pretty solid win against the Saints in a game marred by some shocking injuries to both sides. This week we have a look at the Saints game, check out the AFL news with Nikki, preview the big clash against the Giants, and yes, BoardTalk is back. Rory, this one's for you, mate. This is CrowCast. Okay, welcome everyone to another edition of CrowCast. We've got our full complement again tonight. We have Danos. How you doing, Danos?
Good, thanks, Phoenix, and you?
Pretty good, mate. And we've got Waffle. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Phoenix. I would have let Nikki go first, but you introduced me. How are you?
I just like letting Nikki go last because we can give the big fanfare and, talk about her adventurous cats and all that sort of stuff.
And feet.
And feet, yeah. There's a bit of a reaction from that.
Oh, dear Lord.
On that note, how are you, Nikki?
Oh, how do I respond to that?
Tell us all to have a cold shower. That's pretty topical for you at the moment,
Oh,
isn't
it is at the moment. I'm not happy. Not happy at all.
Yeah,
Sounds like you need a cold shower, Nikki.
I'm going to smack the lot of you.
I need one Saturday afternoon, that's for bloody sure.
It's not the right time of the year to have shower problems, I tell you.
No, not. It does get a wee bit chill around here in the morning, so yes, tomorrow morning's going to be not fun.
So we're going to obviously talk about the St Kilda game and have a preview of next week's big game against GWS. Who would have thought we'd be saying that? And, of course, we'll be hearing from Nikki with Nikki's news and a return to BoardTalk tonight with special guest Kane McGoodwin. So we'll hear from him later on. So without further ado, it's over to you, Nikki, for Nikki's news.
Okay, so just some heads up on the Ryan Crowley situation where that's at. The hearing has over and done with, and they're apparently going to tell us at some stage, but they won't say when. Channel 7 did state that it was the drug that was in the pill that he got from the health professional was methadone of all things. But from what I understand, that is kind of it's one of a small component of a lot of painkillers. So the information we'd had that it was part of a pain pill that he'd got late at night to do with his back injury does kind of seem to fit. And also in drug news, and in, I think the Numpty of the Week award can go to Drew Petrie, who on, I think it was SEN, was talking about it, thinks that the AFL should not have anything to do with WADA. They should drop it completely, and the AFL can handle drugs better than WADA can.
He obviously owns a broom and a rug.
Oh, it was, and he's on the AFL Players Association. Other people have talked about him and said he's quite an intelligent man and everything else. Well, not when he said that. I don't think he doesn't actually understand that if the AFL pulls out, there's a whole lot of government funding that they're going to lose out on, which is all to do with stadium deals.
Yeah, I think the argument against being associated with WADA is more on philosophical terms, in that the WADA code doesn't really cater for team sports terribly well, as we've seen with Essendon. But you're right, there's a whole heap of underlying issues that he obviously hasn't considered there.
And obviously he's not concerned that the aim should actually be on getting as clean a sport as possible, not allowing people to dope.
Well, I mean, I guess we could do that with an AFL code, but I mean,
you'd end up because we know the NFL and the NBA and all the rest don't do it because they're all privately owned and there's an awful lot of money being funneled into those sports. But it's been talked about for years about steroid abuse, etc. And you've seen, a number of players that are getting done, and I think it's almost weekly that you hear about an NFL player has to sit out a couple of weeks because he's been done for steroids.
Yeah.
Did they ever investigate Ben Johnson from Collingwood?
I don't know. I'd have to have a look into that one. I think I remember hearing some stuff about it, but yeah. That was a while ago, though.
Luckily, he retired.
Isn't that why he didn't get investigated? Because he retired?
That could be why. Because once they've stopped playing, and if you're not playing at any level, then yeah, they don't particularly pay any attention to them after that. You know, there's no longer a worry, so to speak, because they're not competing.
So where does
With the
Crowley
AFL
sit? Sorry, Dan, I was going.
With the AFL WADA associated with them?
I think they might have been. Or they definitely were part of ASADA or whatever the ASADA was prior. I'm trying to remember what the name was a little bit prior to it.
I noticed on Friday night that Gill was having a good gas bag with Paul Little.
And yeah, well, Gill needs to get on side with them. I think most people are now starting to realise that the AFL did as much as possible to make this not happen, and it's now out of their hands. So I think they might be in a bit of strife as well for the way it was handled.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a shitstorm brewing.
And I also found it very interesting at the time when Adrian Anderson left, was right around the time all of this was starting to come out. And I thought at the time that there was, you know, some smoke to the rumours going around that he saw the writing on the wall and he was getting out of there as fast as he possibly could.
So I was going to ask earlier, where does Crowley now sit with inadvertent use in terms of a penalty?
Depends on how they want to go and the circumstances that are around it. I mean, he could, with inadvertent use, you can actually just get a reprimand up to 2 years. So it's at the discretion of the tribunal, weighing up the evidence.
I'd hate to be harsh, but Fremantle looked like a better team without him and without his tactics on field.
Yeah, they've been. I know that's been a bit of discussion lately, and they have. It's freed them up in the midfield, and I think it's really paying dividends. Although they don't do so well in second halves. They tend to set up the wind in the first half and then just hang on. Now, what else has been happening in the AFL? Well, Carlton, woes and more woes. That's just, I think Witches' hats might have provided a bit more of a game against GWS on the weekend than what Carlton did. And the crowd they got was just shockingly low.
Talk about fickle supporters, God.
Oh, well and truly. And I think that's partly why they have so many Friday night games, was the supporting numbers were dropping off. So the AFL put on those sort of a bit of the lesser Friday night games of the Victorian teams to help boost their numbers. It just hasn't worked with Carlton because they're dishing up performances that are, I dare to say, pathetic.
Has Triggy been on the phone to Neil?
Oh, who knows? And the other interesting thing I kind of found was, oh, hang on, there it goes. Mind disappearing out of the ether.
Just to fill in that blank.
Yeah, I was like, what was I thinking about? I don't know.
Bit of talk about Worsfold maybe re-entering the fold, and of course he was an assistant at Carlton, so you never know, they might have a crack at him, I think.
I think that partly came from John Elliott's interview last on Monday night with, where he kind of talked about that if he was still in charge, he would be the person that you're after, and he talked about the two, you know, the most respected people he found as good human beings, etc., were Stephen Kernahan and John Worsfold. So I don't know how much you'd take that as a compliment coming from John Elliott, but you know, that was kind of an interesting little chat they had there. This is what I was going to talk about, Fife and the trip. What did you guys think of that? Should he have got weeks or not?
No.
I don't know. I saw it live and he meant to trip him.
He did mean to trip him, and it was a fair old swing, and I think he was lucky. I actually hate this because I actually kind of agree with Mark Robinson. I thought he should have got a week at least.
No.
Because you can't trip with your foot. You can't trip with your leg. That is incredibly dangerous. You don't want players to do it. Okay, it's fine that he didn't get hurt, but there shouldn't be penalties just sitting there of, because he didn't hurt him, it was okay.
Well,
That slightly
that
encourages
happens
people
with
to get away
everyone
with it a
else.
bit.
That happens with everyone else, and I don't
Yeah,
disagree
and I don't
with
like
you.
that.
Well, I don't think his action was malicious. I think it was reckless or negligent, and I'm quite happy that he got a fine. A grand's probably a bit light, but I'm quite happy that it's not going to cost him a Brownlow because it's pretty innocuous.
Because of his brain fade.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, had he brought the guy down, or you know, if there was some malicious intent there, then, you know, fair enough. But it's reckless.
Is it malicious because he did intend to trip him?
And the MRP counted it
They counted it
as intentional.
Yeah, it can still be reckless and intentional, though. It doesn't have to be malicious.
The funny thing is, a mate sent me a message before the Freo game. He goes, "How long before Five has a brain fade?" As soon as I saw it, I said, "And there it is."
Yeah, he's got to do it. He's got to do it once. It's a bit like Tomo having to get at least 1 or 2 high tackles from Tomo in a game because, you know, he just can't help it.
Drives me nuts. Yeah, no, I'm comfortable. It would be disappointing if Fife lost a Brownlow for that. I just didn't. I mean,
yeah,
he didn't try to
I think
hurt
it's
him.
fairly safe to say he's well ahead.
I like the fact that the MRP can give a fine and for it not to count against your Brownlow chances, but I still think that they should be able to give weeks, and for the last 20, 30 years, tripping has been a suspendable offence, and it's now no longer a suspendable offence, and I think that it should be. I think that he was intentionally trying to trip him because he'd fallen over and he was going to lose him, and I think that he should have got a week for it. I don't think that it should count against his Brownlow chances, though.
And that's the problem. If he gets a week, it's Brownlow. And they shouldn't really consider that when they're making their decision, but I'm sure that they do.
Yeah, it is a curly one. That's why I knew I wanted to raise it in here. I think I agree with you, Danos. I think that whole being able to just fine for some of the minor things, although I think Jared Waite's kind of lucky because he has absolute form of whacking blokes in the back of the head because he got there a little bit late. But yeah, this one I thought was borderline for me because he did kick that leg out, and I don't think yes, it's reckless, but I do think it was intentional. And under anything that's intentional in that respect, I think you should get at least a week.
I'll put something out there after I clear my throat. I would suggest that he wasn't actually trying to trip; he was actually trying to stop. And I know that sounds a bit contentious, but the way he put his leg up, the height that he put his leg up, he was actually trying to block with his leg. I know that's a trip, but in terms of intent, there's a subtle difference.
There is, but it can still cause quite a bit of damage.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've nearly had my leg broken by a trip, so I know that. But in that,
I've had a whack on the legs as well, so it's not fun.
No, it's shocking. Anyway, I don't disagree with you, Danos. It's, you know, it really is borderline, but it probably balances up the one he got last year that he shouldn't have.
Yeah, true.
But how many more is he going to do this year?
I'd say there'll be one. At least there'll be at least one. Like him and Ballantyne just can't help themselves.
You won't get away with it a second time, Danos, that's for sure.
Yep.
Thing is, I don't reckon he's actually malicious like Ballantyne. I just think he's highly competitive, and sometimes that gets the better of him. Doesn't like being beaten. And
just does something stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Stevie J was worse. He's an idiot.
How he only got a fine for that, I don't know. Because the fact that he's actually looking at where the other ball is, I'm just going to go and hit him.
The one that really got me was Marley Williams for Collingwood on the wing. He tackled Trent Cotchin, and after the umpire had blown his whistle, he laid a fist into his side. There was nothing else that he could have been doing other than punching him, and it wasn't even looked at.
Interesting.
Second nature to Marley Williams doing that.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought too.
So that's the little tribunal news. The other thing I found interesting is, well, not interesting, but David Swallow is going to be out for a number of weeks because he broke his thumb. So that's not something that you can actually play with. So he's going to be out for a little while. And North Melbourne have a decent old injury list as well. I'm just trying to figure out whether they rival ours or not. But yeah, they're not travelling so well in terms of injuries.
So who's got any juicy gossip on Rory Sloane and his contract?
There was somebody was just ringing in saying there's going to be an announcement on Friday, but as was pointed out, I think they stipulated it was going to be Friday afternoon. Well, that's when the team would be on the plane to Sydney, so I don't think that quite works out. It'd be nice if it occurs.
He won't be on the plane, though.
Well, he did. He was sitting in the box on the weekend, so it'd be interesting to see if he does travel with the team or not.
I don't think there's any danger of him not signing. I've heard one or two really little snippets that aren't worth even paying attention to, but I haven't heard any negative.
No, similar from me. The rumour that seemed to be quite strong was that it was to what the argument is that is between 3 and 5 years is, so it's the same amount of money, but it's just the length of the contract that's being argued about.
I think that was the same caller, wasn't it?
I think that bit came out a bit earlier, and then the caller reiterated it today.
The thing I found interesting last week was the basket case Melbourne and Fergus Watts dropping himself for the week.
Jack Watts.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Dan. Fergus Watts. Lack of sleep, mate. A child with conjunctivitis. You know the story. Same thing.
Oh, Fergus,
same thing.
Fergus was never going to drop himself. He wasn't even close to getting a game.
Well, neither should Jack Watts be. Can I call him Fergus?
Hang on. I've got a cat that's trying to knock the modem around.
Naughty pussy.
Adventurous pussy, apparently.
It's not betting about the bush.
No comment. No, the adventures he decided to take because there's a bit of my ceiling that's been removed, so he got up on a shelf and decided to go for a wander between the ceiling and the gap in the little roof above stairs, and so into the cavity. So I wasn't very pleased with him doing that.
Don't throw that bait out. You know exactly what you're saying right now.
No, I don't.
The gap in the cavity? Come on now.
How else do you describe that? There's a hole in my ceiling. That was not intentional.
And it's a he too. That's unusual.
You got to wonder about the ball drop there.
I think we're all going to get weeks for this conversation, so please continue, Nikki.
Yes, please continue,
I will
Nikki.
tell my father not to tune in, or my mother for that matter. She might tell you off.
My mother would be livid with the way I'm speaking.
My mum would have a very good chuckle.
Actually, it might go over my mum's head sometimes.
Should we explain it?
No, please don't. Not that note, I think we can end the news.
Oh, that's it with the news. Shit.
That's a Fergus Watts handball.
Can't we talk about Jack Watts and his
Oh, if you want,
dropping?
You can go talk off of Jack Watts. So off you go then.
Hey, Waffle, what do you reckon about Fergus Watts?
Yeah, Fergus Watts dropping himself from the Melbourne side was a big call.
It's been blown out of proportion a bit, though, hasn't it? He just wanted a full game.
Well, John Mason's got to be due to come back in the Melbourne side soon.
Is he still on the list?
Or maybe Luke Jericho might get a chance.
No, it'll be James Seller.
Having a friend that played for Melbourne Football Club, he's actually working for a construction company in Geelong. That would suit John to a T, I think. Build a career out of what he couldn't do, what he wanted to do, sort of thing.
So is that it with the news now, Nikki?
Yes, that is it with the news.
You haven't got anything else?
No.
No?
No, I'm right.
Well, we'll leave the audience to plug in the gaps, and we'll move on
I hate
to.
you. I
Silly
hate you
no more
lot.
gaps.
Let's talk about St Kilda.
Nikki's no more gaps.
Nikki's no more gaps.
Unbelievable. Hasn't this turned over the last couple of weeks?
This is like Dr. Feelgood.
So the floodgates have opened.
Jerry
Who remembers Dr. Feelgood on the Austereo network?
Jerry.
Now
No,
we're
do I.
going to get done for harassment here, so let's move on.
Do you behave yourself? I'm not speaking.
Right, so the game versus St Kilda, how did we all see that? Wasn't against the Cats, was it?
No,
I think this is
I'm just leaving that one alone.
turning into Jerry Springer episode.
Yeah, no.
No, there's been no fights yet. There's been no fights or chairs throwing.
That's true.
That's right. We should turn it into a Maury Povich show. And, oh, no, we won't turn it into that.
No, you will not turn it into that.
Well, I think if you were to say before the weekend we're going to come out of it with a 40-something point win against the Saints, we probably would have taken it every time. I, for one, was a little bit concerned about what might happen given St Kilda's comeback against the Bombers and the Bulldogs. So I was pretty pleased with the outcome, apart from the injuries. The injuries were horrible.
Yeah. Yench is going to be a huge, huge loss.
I don't think we even realise how big a loss is going to be.
And you wouldn't have said that 12 months ago either.
Dare I say it, he's having a breakout season.
Yeah, well, his ACL's a bit broken.
Oh, yes.
I'm with you, Dan. I actually tipped St Kilda last week. I thought it was a real bogey game for us, but so you definitely take the 40-odd point win. It wasn't terribly convincing, though.
Oh, there was a couple of, I think it was in the third quarter where there was about three of them where we pretty much went from the back lines to forward. It was absolutely stunning football with the speed of the ball movement and just getting that loose player on his own in the forward lines. If we can do that a bit more consistently, I don't think there's a team in the AFL that could stop that kind of movement.
Eddie Betts, money well spent.
I think we're underpaying him.
Oh, what a breakout game from Charlie Cameron.
He did some great pressure acts as well. The one downside for me is the player who I really, really, really got very annoyed with, which was Henderson. I know he's not the toughest player around, but what disappointed me the most was something that you couldn't see actually on screen, was that once St Kilda got possession in the midfield and they started to move it forward, he would just stop and stand still and let his player run into their forward line, which created an extra player that our backs are then trying to have to cover as well as their own men. So he was letting down the rest of the team. And I reckon there was about 5 score involvements that St Kilda got that you could directly relate to him not following through on the team defence and following his player.
That actually did come through on the TV screen a few times.
Good.
Where you could see him stop after his player got a break on him.
So you think he's a fan of the pea and potato pie, Nikki?
Let's just say I wanted to kill him. And it's very rare that a player will make me that angry that I have a go at them, and I had a go at him. And I don't like doing it, but he frustrated me an awful lot. He had some great runs, he did some great meters gains, but he's playing on the wing. He's got to be accountable to that other wingman who's going to go into their forward lines.
Josh Jenkins has that effect on me, though.
He can at least chase a little bit.
Oh,
I don't know about that.
No, he doesn't. He makes it
More
look as
than
if he's
Henderson
chasing.
does.
He makes it look as if he's chasing, but he doesn't chase.
That was actually an interesting conversation on 360 tonight with Lewis and Goddard, because they talked about them defending that they don't defend a man, they defend a space. And both of them have a basketball background. And they said, well, if you've got the basketball background, that's been ingrained into you that you know you're not good at defending one-on-one. that you do have to defend a space, which I think can probably explain JJ and Hendo a bit because they are very strong basketball backgrounds, but it still frustrates me.
No, it's no excuse. I mean, you don't see Lewis or Goddard squib contests like those two do.
No, they don't. I actually thought, even though you'd suggest that like Lever got possibly beaten, now not all of Bruce's goals were kicked on him. At some stage, Talia was manned up on Bruce. They did change around a bit. But how was the hit on Loney?
Yeah, he doesn't put a backward step, does he? He went straight through that ball then.
And that slap, just the contact was... And the other one who I thought was very hard over the ball was McKay.
Come on now.
I
Go back and watch it. It actually made the plays of the week. There's one where in the back lines where he took the ball, he puts his body over the ball and he goes hard at it. Now, he's not always going to get it, but at least if he's going to knock it out, he's going to make it not easy for the other opposition. But the one that did make the plays of the week, he grabbed that, ball in a pack coming through in the forward lines for St Kilda. He's grabbed it. They've hit him as well. He's done this spun around, and then he's got the handball out.
Yep.
And it resulted in a goal to us.
Yeah, I've got to back you up on that, Nikki, as much as people are going to hate me for it. I think McKay does that a lot more often than people give him credit for. I'm starting to remember him as a guy who is willing to put his body on the line, back into packs and take marks. He's done 2 or 3 of those marks already this year, and some players don't do one in their career.
The problem with D-Mac's never been his intent over the ball, because I agree with you, actually. I'm taking the piss before, but he does get himself over the ball.
Phoenix.
Sorry. The trouble is he just doesn't do it often enough. That's always been D-Mac's problem. He doesn't get himself involved in the game often enough.
I thought his game was actually quite good on Saturday.
Yeah, he was good. If he does that on a consistent basis, it's just getting him, like Phoenix said, to do it consistently and not fade in and out like he usually does.
Well, he's got an opportunity to do that moving forward for the next couple of months anyway, with Jensch going out. So I see him as a perfect... this is a perfect opportunity for him to step up and do something for the team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does in that position, how Walshy restructures a little bit around the loss of Jensch. The other thing I found very interesting in the third quarter was that we came out with a very definite plan and we changed the way we played a little bit, in that when the St Kilda had the ball, and if they did get rid of it, we were very much bringing that player either to ground or blocking them to keep them from running on and getting involved again. And the more the quarter went on, the more you actually noticed that it seemed to be a real intent from all over the ground on our team doing that. And we never gave a free away for a block or dumping, too late. I thought it was very cleverly done by the players. It could be less said about the umpiring, that they may have missed them, but it was such a change in intent that was obviously something that Walshy got them to do from halftime onwards. Oh, that was the other thing I remember watching the game, because Walker did some really nice lead-ups, and that kick from Bob to him was beautiful. It was such a soft kick, so it just, came into his hands beautifully. But Walker's worrying me in that sometimes he'll have front position and he'll give it up and he'll deliberately go to the back. And it's not that the defender's beating him, it's he's the one instigating that move behind. And it's like, what are you doing?
That's a confidence thing. That's what a forward does when they're not confident.
Oh, yeah, it was...
He's struggling at the moment, Walker.
He is. But he's still getting, 2-3 goals. So I think most forwards would take that when they're struggling.
Just watch
definitely.
Half the current forwards will probably take that when they're not struggling.
True.
Just watch out when he hits his peak form.
But there were some really nice passes from Lyons and Greg towards him as well. A couple of them didn't quite take, but we still got scores out of them. But I thought that he'd lifted his game a notch from last week. that
I still think
he's
he's
slowly
carrying
starting to
something,
build the
but
confidence back
anyway.
a bit. Yeah, I do wonder if it is the hand. But I didn't see him shake it this week at all, like he has previously in a couple of other games when he's landed.
Well, some speculation on the board this week was surrounding that Tex knows or allegedly knows of one of the two, Rory or Patrick, leaving. And perhaps that's the baggage that's weighing on him, causing him to not perform as well as he should.
I think that's people just jumping at shadows. It's a bit like we get comments all the time, oh, I've looked at Danger's body language and he's going, and I can look at exactly the same thing, and I just see a very team-orientated player.
You guys have played football. Have you ever gone out onto a ground and played below your best because one of your teammates was doing something? I mean, that's just bizarre thinking. It's stupidity.
It is. Like, I used to play against a guy I grew up with in Div 3, and, like, we used to pummel the living daylights out of each other, and end of the game, we shake hands, have our arm around each other, and the ump's like, do you two know each other? It's like, yeah, we've known each other since we were 6 years old, mate.
Yeah,
it's just bullshit.
You step out on that ground and you give 100%. I actually was quite pleased with Danger's game. I noticed he did. He was a lot more inside because we had to have him do that. He didn't get a huge amount of possessions, but I thought what he actually did get, there were some really nice ones in there.
So the wash-up is we're happy with the 40-odd point win and move on?
Yep.
I think
Definitely.
so.
Take it and improve on this week, or we'll get caught with our pants down.
And on that note, we'll move on. All right, so tonight we're very pleased to kickstart BoardTalk again after a few weeks hiatus, somewhat due to a distinct lack of volunteers from the board, which leaves us very disappointed in the quality of people. Very, very soft. Bunch of pussies, really, Nikki, wouldn't you say?
If you could see the look I'm giving the computer screen right now.
So without further ado, we're going to welcome an esteemed member of the Adelaide BigFooty board to the show. Welcome, Kay McGoodwin. How you going, mate?
All good. Thanks for the warm welcome.
So,
A seasoned campaigner.
yeah, very seasoned.
The doyen of the board.
You were the original moderator.
Yeah, it's been 14 years.
14 years.
14 years. So it's certainly, time flies when you're having fun, they say.
Or you're just mad.
Well, I probably went mad through my moderating years, but anyway.
Because how long was that? Because you moderated for quite a while.
Yeah, started in around about 03. Later in 03, the Adelaide board was the only one which didn't have their own team basically moderating. We had Danny at the time, who was a Brisbane supporter, and she did a great job. But I sort of raised the issue on the board that I thought we should have an Adelaide board person moderating it. My intention wasn't actually become the moderator, but it turned out that way. I think after the likes of Macca 23 pulled out, I'm sure. It was sort of fell into it. Passed all the Bluey tests. Bluey being the former chief, for those who haven't been around a long time. So he disappeared soon after I became moderator, but it's nothing to do with me, that's for sure.
Now, when did you get the little sig that you have on the bottom about not arguing with an idiot? When did that kind of come into play?
I reckon I started that very early in the piece. It would have probably been within the first year. I think it would have been before I became moderator. That was just, I suppose, my old sage advice about, particularly when we see a lot of very personal stuff, I suppose, going on, which can come a bit infuriating at times. So, although you can probably gather I don't often always listen to my own advice, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing not being a moderator anymore. You can actually, I suppose, fire up a bit more.
I find that SIG very soothing when someone's infuriating me to the point of where I think I'm going to just crack it, and I'm like, that SIG is brilliant, so calm down, waffle.
Yeah, because otherwise you might have to put 2 sentences in waffle.
Yeah, true. Or look for Fergus Watts.
Well, it was. I would like to say it was actually prior to some of the big board battles that we used to have, like the Macca's 01 versus Crow 98.
Oh, nightmares! Don't give me nightmares.
Look, I've lost count of how many infractions and PM warnings I would send these buggers. I can remember towards the end, I pretty well threatened if either actually posted or replied to the other, I was going to iron them both out for I think a week or a month. I can't remember at the time, but I think they finally wore me out. And yeah, anyway, they did calm down actually.
I think it was a week because I remember that discussion, and I think the rest of us were like, "Yep, go ahead, do it."
Yeah, well, as you know, I copied you in on all my messages, so I think, yes, they look, I don't know, they just couldn't lay off each other, could they? So they were fine individually usually, but yeah, they just, I don't know, rubbed each other wrong. But anyway, makes life interesting, I suppose.
Did we determine that Crow 98 has re-emerged as someone else on the Crows board?
I thought it was Alex.
I believe so.
Alex.
Is it? I thought it was someone else, but I could be wrong.
Well, we're not allowed to check IP addresses anymore, so we can't tell you.
Yeah. Yes. We used to check IP address, particularly for likes of
Big Hawk,
Outback Jack.
Oh yes, and Big Hawk, who seemed to post from Italy at very odd hours every so often, at certain times of the year.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So it was certainly entertaining, I suppose, when you had to when you're in amongst it, but I suppose that's the one thing you don't notice as much when you're not moderating is these sort of things, because I suppose posters tend to contact you about anything and everything, including, of course, emails from the Rooch, of course. I think they're the most infamous ones of all. So being the inaugural
emails from Rucci?
Regular emails from Rucci. Yeah. He used to complain that we're that was back when he took a few things, I suppose, a little bit too personally. So he seemed to worry about what we were talking about on the net. So, but it was quite hilarious, really. But look, he even offered to take me out to lunch for free, and but I declined his offer.
Would it have been free, or would it have been on?
They wanted to come along.
Would it have been on News Limited's tab though?
Probably, yeah. Actually, I should have just said I'll go along as long as he gets me a bottle of Grange or something. But anyway, didn't think of that at the time.
You'd have to be the only journalist that would react so personally to stuff that happens on a bloody internet forum, surely.
Oh, he's the only one who ever contacted me. So, yeah, I mean, back in those days, I had to play a pretty straight bat as much as I wish I could, I suppose, be a little bit more forceful with my comments. But, I mean, that was sort of when, compared to what goes on these days with social media, it's nothing. I mean, it was all very, very harmless. So, it's, I'm guessing he doesn't contact the moderators anymore, but particularly since he gets most of his best news from the board anyway, so he wouldn't want it shut down, would he? That's what he often claimed, he'd shut it down and stuff like that, so if we didn't pull out.
He still gets those problems with Twitter. I know that he's blocked half of the Adelaide board who have got Twitter.
I must admit, I'm not a Twitter person, but yeah, I when I do hear him, he keeps talking about how many people he's blocked. So I don't even know why people bother to follow him, to be honest. But yeah. Anyway, he's
it's a badge of
interesting
honour.
cat. Yeah,
I follow him just to poke fun at him when he makes stupid comments.
Most people follow him just to taunt him.
You can still read his tweets though.
Okay.
You can't see my tweets. I've got a private account.
Yeah, no, I felt like when I was on moderating this board, it was almost like he was stalking us at the time. So I must admit, I've never really gone out of my way to follow him too much.
So apart from Crow's 98 Macca's #1, that little bun fight that went on for years, who was probably the worst defender? Was it Outback Jack?
Yeah, single-handedly, yeah, he would be, because he just kept on popping up with aliases, didn't he?
Yeah, you ban him and he'd be back within minutes.
Yeah, exactly right. So he was probably the most annoying from that point of view. We had obviously a lot of posters which tend to rile people up. So you had the Chromos of the world, even who, well, I think you end up banning him, ending the banning or something. Anyway.
Yeah, I had to work on him quite a bit. He was very clever though. I think we've talked about this somebody else before. Yes, he was very clever at knowing what the rules were and not quite overstepping the mark, but getting very close.
Yeah. I must admit, I sent him plenty of warnings. So yes, he was certainly. Look, I enjoyed actually reading most of his posts, but yeah, you had to keep telling him to pull his head in. But he's not really one who took to those sort of. Most people would. Actually, most people were pretty good with warnings, I found, but he was one who was going to stick to his guns. So, funny enough, Diatribe was another in his early years. He was very feisty. Interesting how he became moderator. But maybe Aspire quietened him down a bit. But yeah, certainly in his Crows as opposed to Port days before he went to the dark side, he certainly didn't mind a good argument. But he
still likes it over there.
Yeah. I must admit, I don't see much of him these days. So I used to go and visit their boards quite a bit more. But since it's sort of they don't sort of like too much opposition comment, I tend to avoid it these days and just read. But yeah, it's I mean, I suppose, and that was one thing I suppose which I posted when I originally became moderator, that I was always keen for our board not to become insular, like some of the others had, and actually openly encouraging opposition supporters to come onto our board, because I really think that's healthy in terms of getting different points of view on how you're travelling. So, and I hope it always stays that way. I certainly wouldn't want to go down the track of what some of the others have done. And yep, I know that means that you're open to a little bit of stirring and everything sometimes, but I just think we're better off for it. And I suppose there's some posters I know just don't want to see anyone Port Adelaide on there, but we've got some Port Adelaide follower and stuff like that who come on and they add to our board, in my opinion. So
yeah, they do.
I think as long as they don't talk shit, then what does it matter? Who they vote for.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we've got Adelaide supporters who talk more shit than some of them.
Yeah, some of them embarrass me.
Yeah.
Well, some of them, I think, do they even watch the game, or have they ever played the game, or where do they get these views from?
Some of them, I think, are just purely trolls who are actually opposition supporters.
Yeah, there could be a bit of that, but I trust. I mean, look, all supporter bases have got their idiots, I suppose you could say. Just some supporter bases, I reckon, have a higher percentage. That's all.
And when you've got a large number of people, a larger supporter base, you're going to get a larger number of idiots.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's interesting. I can remember when I first joined on BigFooty, there was probably only about a dozen to 20 regular posters, so it was pretty small. So, I mean, that's back when you had the Macca 23s and Stiffy 18s and the Jars brothers, Top and 458. And
Oh, we
so
haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about the posters. I mean, we had Nap Sid and Dave W, who are both Sydney-based, who I actually met both of them at a Crows game. Of course, one of the many games which we didn't lose in Sydney once when we had the good record. S.A. Paul, Ant, Noddy, of course.
Ant was so good, and I miss Dave W.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to him. So I don't know. It might even still have his mobile number. I don't know because we caught up. But yeah, he was good. I mean, he was the guy I was keen to get as a second moderator pretty quickly after I became. We had pretty similar views and the way of doing things, and he was pretty unlucky not to become the inaugural Adelaide one, really. And that was back when the board was also starting to grow as well. So I was of the belief that there was this expectation that as a moderator he'd be around 24/7, and obviously we'd have holidays too. So he was the one who I was always keen to get on to be second. So he was a great support. So yeah, absolutely miss him. He's a good footy mind too.
Yeah, he used to have some absolutely brilliant posts discussing the game and stuff, and could also be quite funny.
Yeah. Oh, look, he's a really tall guy, really humble, and really. If you're listening, Dave, come back. So it's all good.
Yes, we need some insight.
Then, of course, I think around about bought it after Dave passed away. But Mad Dog, of course, came in, and then Nikki soon after. I think that was basically the board was really expanding, so we decided to go for 3. And also, that was around the time I was about to take 2 months off to go to the Caribbean to watch the Cricket World Cup.
I remember that.
So,
bit of a cricket tragic you are.
I appointed Nikki and basically said, "See you later. I'm gone for 2 months. You won't hear much from me."
Thanks for that.
Baptism of fire.
Yeah, pretty well. And after that, pretty well, Mad Dog and Nikki took over. So I think I pretty well retired soon after.
I think it was a very cunning plan. It was a very cunning plan on your part.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I sort of had took a rather senior role at that time. So unfortunately, work commitments meant I couldn't really be around as much as I used to. So it wasn't fair to be around, hang on to it, and not be around as much. Because there's been a few moderators like that and they sort of disappear. So it's not really a good look, I don't think.
So have you enjoyed the board more since you've stopped moderating?
I don't know about enjoy more. I didn't mind doing it, to be honest. And, I could well be still doing it if, depending on the circumstances. But I suppose you can be a little bit more brutal with what you can say. Because, I mean, when you were particularly when I was the only moderator, you can't say that, you're a moderator sort of thing. People get a bit precious. So I suppose you can sort of post not having to worry about that as much and be a little bit, although I must admit I've even got a warning from the big fella. So apparently I even overstepped the mark.
What did you do?
I suppose, What did I do? Am I allowed to? I'm not sure I'm allowed to say. I suppose you can cut it out if. I accused a certain poster of not being a Crow supporter. I still, to this day, don't think they are a Crow supporter.
Nice.
So, they've never posted anything positive about the Crows, so they're one of those which I think actually are an alias for someone else. I'm not going to name who it is. I'll probably get it.
I just nailed it, didn't I?
I think a lot of people might have certain feelings regarding some certain posters that where their true allegiance lies.
Yeah, it was just one of those moments where it was just, I don't know, you get fed up with people who are just 100% negative, and I suppose I just gave them a full-on serve one night, and they went off running to the big fella, didn't they? So anyway, I think people get what they deserve sometimes. Yeah, well, if I think all the posts which have been aimed at me over the years, yes. But anyway, each their own. So yeah, that's all right. I promised I wouldn't do it again. Naughty boy. Not least for a month.
So where did your footy supporting background originate? Who do you support in the SANFL, and how did you come to be a Crows supporter?
I'm a Sad Bay supporter at the moment. I don't think we've been quite the same since the Crows came in and they took half our infrastructure and stuff. And we're now just getting regularly flogged, aren't we? Can't even hold on to our coaches.
And have to turn off the lights to win games.
Yeah, or draw games.
That was
Can't
so funny.
even win them. So yeah, Bay supporter. So I used to, not that I'm from that end of town, but grew up watching them. So at least have some memories of Flags, but they are even more distant than the Crows ones. And then as soon as went along to the first, it was scratch match, Crows versus Essendon. Sheedy brought his Essendon team over, and went to the first game versus Hawthorn for points, and pretty well been going ever since. So went to most of the games in the first year, and pretty well decided it was cheaper to buy a season ticket. So basically had a season ticket since year 2. So yeah, it's been good. Got to love it, don't you? So unfortunately, the Crows have probably been a little bit more successful than the Bays. So I don't know what would happen if I was still just following the Bays.
We'll just ignore the Robert Shaw years.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit that was the last game of the season. I think it was versus Fitzroy actually. That was the only time I just didn't want to go, and I actually gave my tickets away. I had enough, mind you. I think a good 30% of the supporting base had gone well before me. But yeah, the last game of the season, I just remember, I had enough of watching this stuff. So yeah, fortunately, it was only 2 years, but geez, it was definitely the toughest 2 years. Don't know who was on that panel.
Well, the one good thing out of it though was his recruiting was good, because he set up our premiership teams.
Yeah, but then he may as well become recruiter, not coach. But yes, you're right. He did get some pretty handy players. So and then we were ripe for the taking for Blighty. So yes, there's always positives in something, that's for sure. So yeah, all good. And you got to go through some tough years, I think, before you really start to appreciate it. And I think that's what, particularly that young group coming through at that point in time, I think that sort of hardened them up for when they really needed it in 97, 98.
Yeah, certainly after the 93 prelim and that disappointment, we had bigger expectations of the Shaw years, and it was just so demoralising.
Yeah, absolutely. And they weren't going to lose out on opportunities this time. So yeah, that Jarman missed goal just before halftime, and Rennie takes the flyer and misses. Oh yeah, yep. Everything happens for a reason. So yeah, I think that did certainly harden us for 97, 98. So, but now I think we've had enough of the lower years. We're due again, aren't we?
I'd say so.
I reckon we are.
It's been a long.
So tradition dictates, mate, that we put you on the grill and give you half a dozen questions, colloquially termed the dirty half dozen. I think Nikki came up with that phrase. I
did not.
Well, it was probably inspired by you, Nikki, anyway. So,
all good.
The first question is the obvious one, and we should include Sloaney in this now, is Danger and or Sloaney staying or leaving?
I believe they will both stay. Although I'm not as confident as I was at the beginning of the year, but I'm pretty sure they will stay as long as we go okay.
Now, if you had a duffel coat, who would you have on the back of it?
I'd go 32. Can't go wrong there because you got Roo, now Danger. And then you probably have Roo Jr. when Danger retires.
Which Roo, though? Which Roo Jr.?
I don't care.
He's got a couple.
I know.
It'll have to be 32A and 32B and 32C.
Yeah, wouldn't that be good?
Who was it before then? It was Bruce
Lindner.
Lindsay before then, wasn't it? Lindner.
Bruce Lindsay.
Yeah, no, Lindsay.
Was Bruce Lindsay?
Yeah, it was Bruce Lindsay.
Yeah, he's a fair player. Just unfortunately, we basically recruited him when he's ready for retirement.
Yeah, we had a few like that. It was just, on the back end of their careers. They did well,
David Marshall.
through those early years. David Marshall was a freak.
There's some strange decisions in that early squad, but...
well, Cornsey was in charge of it, so...
Yeah, well... Yes, maybe he shouldn't be in charge of recruitment.
Well, it did include our first premiership captain as the last player on his initial squad, so that wasn't a bad choice.
Yeah. Look, there was the old Glenelg Port thing back then, wasn't it? So it certainly made for an interesting selection.
Oh, yeah. When we picked up, was it Daryl Smith? He was playing for us, wasn't he? There was always a bit of angst about that.
Daryl Smith, David Brown, Hodges. They never sort of gelled, did they, in that environment?
The most important question of the night, Kylie or Danny?
I'm going to disappoint the big fella here. Danny's just a Kylie wannabe, so got to go Kylie.
Good man.
Good boy. If you could meet one poster who you haven't already met, because clearly you've met a few, who would it be and why? I don't know whether I actually have one particular one. I actually wouldn't mind just catching up with a beer with Mad Dog. He's not around too much these days, so
I bump
he's
into
probably the one.
I bump into him at the footy every so often.
Yeah. So, but yeah, look, there's plenty. I think the great thing about the board now, there's just too many to list, but there's many posters now, which I enjoy reading, and so yeah, too many. We actually had years ago. We actually had a Adelaide board BigFooty meetup many years ago. So, but there's only probably about half a dozen or so which turned up. But yeah, it was good. Had a few to drink.
And the last one, mate, and it's probably a two-part question now. Will the Crows make the 8, and can we make the top 4?
I'm pretty sure we'll make the 8, but as long as we don't get too many injuries. I mean, they're starting to take toll, but I think even with our draw, we should be able to get through. I think it's unlikely we'll be in the top 4. But look, strange. It's wide open, isn't it? I mean, I think you'd have to say 3 hour a lock in already for top 4. I'd say Hawthorn will still come charging. Sydney are likely. So there's a spot there, but I think if you're a betting man, you'd say somewhere in the 5th to 8 region, probably around 6, I think. I think that's what I said at the beginning of the year, so I'll stick to that. But yeah, looking, I mean, I think the most important thing is Walshy's now got them mainly playing to their strengths a bit more, and in terms of getting the structures right. And I think even that when you get injuries, you can cover better. You're not becoming so reliant on, I suppose, the main ones to get you over the line. So I think more evenness, the way we're going, that certainly helps cover. But like we wouldn't want Saucy or Talia or something, or Tex to go down. I think we'd be in strife then. But no, I think 5th to 8th, I'll stick to that.
Very good.
Long-winded answer, I know.
No, I happen to agree with you. That evenness, years gone by, if we'd have lost a couple of midfielders like we had, and a key defender, we would be, falling over. But this year we seem to have that team structure in place to cover, so it's pretty good. All right, mate. Well, it's been great to have you on, and thanks very much for helping us get BoardTalk started off again. Lots of good memories about the early times, which many of the posters on the board these days wouldn't even be aware of. So thanks for all your insight and your participation. We'll try and represent you fairly in the recording.
I'm sure you will. No, thanks for the invite. It's been a pleasure. And enjoy your work.
Thanks, Kane.
Okay.
No worries,
Cheers.
thanks, mate.
Is this the match of the round?
Well, it'll be close to the match of the round, wouldn't it?
4th versus 5th. It's in hot competition with Hawthorn and Sydney.
Yeah, but they're both playing crap.
Are they?
Well,
Yeah.
Sydney's in
by
pretty good form.
115 points last week.
On Melbourne.
It's going to be a very interesting game because we've obviously had no trouble with GWS up until, this year, as have many teams. So it'll be interesting to see how we go against them, at the top of their game.
Yeah, I'm just wondering who their defence is going to be matching up on ours. I mean, their forward line is very interesting, and I think it structures very similarly to how we want our forward line to structure up with the three tallers. I don't think they quite have the small that plays tall like we have in Eddie, but they do have a lot of their midfielders coming down. So our defenders are definitely going to have their hands full.
It's the midfield that we're going to struggle. I think they've just got so much speed.
So we're going to have to. So the press is going to have to be back, and is really going to have to force them out wide, because I think what Ruse was saying on Monday. It wasn't Ruse. It was Malthouse was talking about their spread, and how quickly they do. So you've really got to stay on target. This could almost end up being a slight shootout in a way, I think.
With their massive crowd.
Hey, look, they might get 6,000. Don't diss that crowd.
I'll be one of that crowd this week.
Now,
I'm quite excited to go down to Scota Stadium and see what it's all about.
I think there might almost be more Crow supporters than GWS supporters there.
All of the South Australian expats in the ACT in New South Wales will be there.
Yeah, the ACT's got a fair few expats. I used to be part of the supporters group there. There was a decent old crowd.
Yeah, I've already heard that Vader will be there.
Watch out for the mask.
I think the biggest challenge is going to be our centre clearance work, actually, because Mumford's going to be more than a match for Jacobs, and he also does a lot of groundwork as well. Reading a couple of comments during the week of how the GWS boys are saying that he just clears the decks for them a fair bit with his physical presence. So that's going to be interesting to see how we counter that.
But
Just running through the centre square.
But conversely, though, Jacobs is really providing a lot of link and run around the ground. So there's going to be that's I think going to be a very intriguing battle as to which way they go. And I think Phoenix, you noted that up against Goldstein and Lobe, that Jacobs was a bit off because he seemed to be trying to jump that little bit earlier. So it will be interesting to see if he's learnt from that against Mumford.
Well, as a comparison, in round one against Goldstein, Jacobs had 32 hit-outs, or around about 32 hit-outs, and Goldstein had around about 41, but we had 40 clearances to North Melbourne's 27. So I think we've got the structures in place to be able to shaft those contests that we know that we're not always going to be the winners of the hit-outs.
So who do we think is going to come in for Yanch and Smith?
Well, Kerridge will come in. He's had 3 decent weeks.
I wasn't impressed with him. Did you watch the SNFL?
His first half was good, and then I think he lost interest, to be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed with his first half. I thought he was a little bit off the pace at times and going.
Yeah, I don't know. Kerridge, I think, played. I don't know whether you guys saw the sample game. I watched it. He looked like he was playing. He was playing like he'd done his time in the sample and wanted to get back into into the ones. And I wouldn't begrudge him that. He belongs in the ones. He's in our best 22, so I'd expect him to come in.
Well, he's had his 2 games in the sample now. So
3 now.
he's had 3. Well, Smith and Yench definitely coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one more that makes one, Curly, and either Josh or Rob come in, as well as Kerridge. And just going on that hit-outs thing as well, against Port Adelaide, we had 39 hit-outs. Port had 63, but we had 47 clearances to Port's 34. So even if what I'm saying is, even if Mumford gets on top of the ruck, then we've still got the structures in place to be able to shark those hit-outs and hopefully make the most of them going forward.
So do we think O'Brien comes in? Because I tell you what, watching the Sanford game on the weekend, I really liked Jack Osborne's work up forward. And comparing him to Josh Jenkins,
and he likes to take.
It's not a bad option.
Yeah, I thought you would like him. Those couple of the crashing the packs.
Yeah, he took one from about 3 back and up near the goal square, and that was something you wouldn't see Josh do very often.
He's always had a really nice 1 to 2 grabs. He's very good at marking the ball in a contested situation. It's just been really pleasing for me this year to see him finally starting to put it all together. The thing you didn't see was his ruck work. Last year it wasn't really that good. He did ruck work for the first 2 SANFL games from memory, and there were some nice little taps and going on. So I've seen a huge improvement in him.
Yeah.
And also talk about the SANFL. Riley Knight coming back for his first game. That was quite a nice. I think he will definitely be getting AFL games later on this year.
Such a shame that he missed the start of the season because he was apparently on the cusp of selection.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard too.
Before he got injured, so and coming out and having such a good game in the sample, would have to keep him high on the selectors' radars.
I think Jared Lyons is going to be the one that's under pressure from Riley to get in because he offers a little bit more than Jared's been giving us.
Oh, so if you actually go back and watch the replay, there's a lot of our scoring shots were Lions either the first or that last pass into before we score or the one just before. So Lions was doing quite a nice little things, but true, it wasn't a huge number of possessions. I just thought the ones that he did get were quite quality.
I think Greg's gone past him in terms of value, though.
But the fact that we know that they can both come in and play to a standard that we expect is pleasing.
Yeah, and, you've got to think, the amount of injuries that we have got to key players, these kids are starting to really come on now. And we're building a really nice second tier of players that can come in and do a job.
The Hawthorn model.
So do we reckon Sammy Jacobs needs a chop out this week and so Rolly O'Brien comes in?
I'd be interested to see what Walshy does. I would like to see him play, but Walshy has been talking up JJ. So that may prove interesting. I think if JJ isn't quite right, then Riley O'Brien would definitely come in. But if JJ's fit enough, I think Walshy will go with JJ ahead of Riley.
He must be training the house down because bloody hell. I'm not saying anymore.
He's obviously doing his role that the coach wants him to.
What, decoy forward?
Well, who still kicks goals? That's Riley's one downfall is he's, I think, very shy now around the forward lines. He doesn't want to have a kick for goal. His kicking around the ground's fine. He's panicking in front of the goals. I
just don't think we can have 4 small forwards. I mean, we've got Eddie and Charlie and Matty Wright. I mean, do you bring another small forward and Josh Jenkins in?
At one stage on last week's game, we just had Tex as the tall forward, and then you had Greg, Wright, Lyons, Betts, and I think Lynch was wandering around somewhere. So that was actually kind of a slowish forward line, really. I think Curley's definitely coming in if he's available.
So what's the consensus? Are we going to sneak a win there, or is this another one of those ones that we're in danger of dropping?
Well, I haven't seen the Crows play live for a couple of years, so they better get the job done for me.
Oh, pressure. I'm with you, Phoenix. If we play well, I think we'll win. But we only have to be a little bit off and GWS can come storming over. But I've been pleased to see that Walshy and the team are able to stop the rot after a while. I mean, they might give up a little bit of time, but they're able to stop the rot and get back in the game. So, yeah, I'm with you. This is... I'm still not quite too sure which way to pick yet.
Well, Squiggly Lines has got GWS beating us by 3 points.
Well, the AFL thought GWS were going to beat us by 40 points, and yet most of the stats they were all quoting were in our positive favour. So,
yeah, very odd.
Lies and statistics. Hey, Danos?
Yeah, well, as pointed out by Backen, our average losing margin this year is about 40 points. So it's the only thing that I can think of that they are looking at.
Yeah, it's just a bit odd. I'd like to think that we're going to maintain the up there with, I think, was it Essendon, and I think there's 3 others that the expansion teams haven't beaten yet.
I think personally losing Yench and Brodie Smith is going to hurt us a lot more than what we expect, and therefore I think GWS might just get up. All right, well, on that note, we've better edit that out. That brings us to the end of our preview of the GWS game, and also to the end of our podcast for the week. All right, well, thanks, guys, and, good luck to the Crows again on the weekend, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
See you later.
You've been listening to CrowCast, brought to you by Casimir Event Technology for all your live production and studio recording needs. See you at the footy.